Hello, welcome to episode number 4. I'm Esther Piszczek. I am host of Eternal Possibility Hour, where I interview ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things. And I'm so excited to be talking with my friend, my artist friend, Alexa Carson, who lives here in Duluth, Minnesota with me. And she is an artist and a birth doula. And I'm going to bring her on and we're going to have a lovely chat. Hi, Alexa.
Hello, Esther.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. I'm so excited to chat with you about all of the exciting things that you're doing. So let's just hear about your journey to becoming an artist to begin. And whatever you'd like to share about that, because you're doing something new in your art world. And so I'd like to lay a foundation for that for everyone who's listening.
Yeah, oh, that's a good question. I knew that I wanted to be an artist from a young age. Once I had decided that I wasn't going to be a ballerina, I think that's when I settled on being an artist. Yeah, probably 10 years old, I decided I wanted to illustrate children's books specifically, but I was always drawing animals and sometimes landscapes and occasionally people, but I always gravitated toward animals. And so I went to the Columbus College of Art and Design in Columbus, Ohio, and got a degree in illustration. It's actually really hard to make a living illustrating children's books because there are a lot of people who want to do that. Go figure. So I ended up being a graphic designer for a little while at the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, which was actually super fun because, I got to pet baby cheetahs, things like that. But then we moved here to beautiful snowy Duluth. I'm looking out at our snowstorm that we're having right now in April. And I was kind of given the opportunity to stop doing graphic design and trying to make a living and just do artwork.
Yeah. So where did you start?
As far as just painting?
Yeah. What were you interested in as an adult as opposed to being a child?
Mm-hmm. So in art school, I started painting wildlife, and that was really inspired by beginning to volunteer at a wildlife rehabilitation clinic in Ohio, and I just really fell in love with wildlife. I already really liked nature before, but just getting to work hands-on with animals, it was really magical for me. And I started bird watching and just more and more kind of became enthralled with the natural world. So even when I was still in school, I just started specifically painting birds because they just spoke to me. They seemed so magical. And yeah, I just really loved painting the native wildlife. It was back in Columbus, Ohio, it's very metropolitan, and it was very almost avant-garde to be painting wildlife. People would see my arts at art festivals and say, oh, you could put an owl on your living room wall, I suppose. It was like this very surprising thing to, be painting wildlife. And then moving to Duluth, it was, that's just what you do in Duluth is you paint animals because
Exactly.
the culture is so different here. The culture is so just really rooted in the outdoors and nature. So it was kind of a little disappointing to not be, one step ahead of the game and interesting and different. But at the same time, it was really lovely to move to a place where people had very, similar ideals to what we had and to what I was painting about. Like people actually got it.
Yeah, that's always so affirming and validating and helps you sell your artwork, which is always amazing.
Yes, definitely. My chickadees and loons and foxes and owls, tend to sell pretty well at the galleries here with, especially the tourists and people who are having a wilderness adventure up in the Northland and want to take a piece of that home. So I've been very thankful to be able to sell my work fairly easily at the galleries up here.
Yes. Well, you have moved into a new subject, which might strike some as surprising. So would you like to talk about a little bit about that? And we're going to get into much more detail, but a little bit about that and how that came about. Because I had in your introduction, I had already told people that you are a birth doula. So and a mother, you're a mother of three. So where did this all kind of shift from wildlife into what you're doing now?
Well, I'll start by saying that I fought it for a while. For a while, I was clinging tooth and nail to the idea that I am a wildlife artist. I do not paint people. Even when I was feeling the call for a while, I did not see how I could possibly move from wildlife. What will my Instagram followers think? So it was a process. It was very much an internal process to get there. But it started with the birth of my second child. His birth was well, and pregnancy too, and postpartum, but all of it, the experience was really empowering. And I just started learning. I had always seen the magic in nature, even as a child. I got so upset when my dad would mow the dandelions. I thought the dandelions were so magical. And I had always just seen humans as these interlopers, industrial and not connected, and just I didn't see how we were a part of the magic at all. And Hawthorne's birth started to open that up for me. Specifically, my own magic, my own power, and the power that humans, and specifically women, men have their powers too, but I'm not familiar on a very personal level. So just the kind of power that we have when we are connected, and when we, tap into the very physical, raw primalness of our mammalian selves. And then also, on a spiritual level, when we, connect to nature and, the greater web, and to ourselves, like on that spiritual level.
Mm-hmm. Was there one moment in Hawthorne's, either during your pregnancy or during the birthing process itself, or posts that you can really point to saying that it was a pivotal change in your kind of the direction of where you wanted your thought processes to go?
I would say that it was a slow meandering way. During his pregnancy, I just started to learn more, and about women, about our bodies, about just how amazing our bodies are. And then his birth, he was birthed at home, and the midwife got here 20 minutes before he was born, and basically never did anything. I did it all. And that was so incredibly empowering and just shocking to me, even though that's kind of what I had planned for. But to have that experience, it just was so empowering. And just, I started to look at my body in a different way. I think most of us grew up with this idea that we're broken. Birth, it's just like something to dread. It's just horrible. I can remember as a child thinking, oh, I don't want to give birth if it hurts that much, like as a 10-year-old. Where was I even, getting this anxiety from? And, periods and menstruating, oh, it's just such a drag to be a woman, all these things that we have to deal with. And that just started to slowly reverse. And I started to see and appreciate what my body was capable of.
Wow. That's really powerful. I think it's a conversation that isn't had regularly in society as a whole, either definitely with men, but even with women.
Yes.
Yes. So when did you decide? So you talked about having a midwife during your second child's birth. When did you decide that you were going to become a birth doula? And is that different from a midwife? Because I'm not actually sure.
Yes. So a birth doula does not actually do anything medical. We are not medically trained, though we know very deeply how the birth process works. We don't do anything medical. So a birth doula is somebody who we often prenatally offer just like education, just about the birth process and just kind of the whole thing, nutrition and body movement and all that kind of stuff. And then, specifically during the birth, we're there to help provide informational support. We advocate if it's a hospital birth. We sometimes babies have a hard time coming out and, like they get stuck or they're in the pelvis in the wrong position. And we carry a knowledge of different movements and how babies, turn and get in there. And we hope to problem solve. And basically, we're just there to provide any and all support that the parents need to have the kind of birth that they want. Emotional support, informational support, physical support. Sometimes my arms are really sore after a birth because I've been massaging or, just doing different things, for hours on end because that's what she needed.
Yeah. And how have you enjoyed that experience? It's very different than just being an artist. Not just being an artist is amazing, but it's a very different thing to be in that intimate connection with someone who may be a bit of a stranger to you. You might be in their home, you're probably in their home, but then they might not be wearing any clothing. It's a little bit, you're touching them. So how is that? How was that for you?
Yeah, I really love supporting women. I love all of it, most of it. I love seeing women realize how powerful they are. I'm very picky because I'm not in it for the business, or the monetary aspect, of course that plays into it. That's a part of it. It is a business transaction, but I really choose people who I feel a connection with. That's really important to me to be able to have a relationship, build a trust, get to know one another. And I work with people who are wanting to have kind of a similar experience to what I had, whether or not it's in the hospital or home. I think that anybody can have an empowering experience. It all comes down to basically who's in charge. So, if a woman is given autonomy, then she usually has a really great experience, no matter what has to happen, if she's the one who's given the choices. So
yeah, it's beautiful. So how did this experience, starting with the birth of your second son, moving into being a birth doula, and your change in mindset about your role as a female, your empowered state, and then also what I believe what you're saying is discovering that connection, the spiritual connection and the natural connection to earth and the animals and mammals, and how birds are laying eggs, and horses are birthing little foals. and seeing yourself in that connection, how did that start to play into your mind and your heart for presenting that on the canvas with your paints and your paintbrush?
Yeah, I thought it really started with birth and it has blossomed out from there. But I became really frustrated. I still am frustrated with the state of birth, especially in the United States. We have a really high morbidity rate, mortality rate, and like injury rate, and we really don't do that well in the United States. We are way down the list. There are developing countries that are higher on the list than the United States. So I was frustrated with that, basically how birth is treated and how just culturally birth is viewed. Have you ever seen a beautiful, empowered birth experience in the media, on television, in a movie? How are we supposed to trust our bodies and realize how powerful we are? How are men supposed to see women and be in awe of us, which I think they should be, if if like birth, for starters, there's so much more to it, but it's either something to laugh about or it's something to fear. And so I just really wanted to start adding some images to the cultural database for people to see and hopefully, like get that into people's souls. Like, let the teenage girls see these images, let, my 7-year-old boy, see these images that show women as powerful and show our bodies as positive, something to be trusted, something to be, again, in awe of, not something to just be managed in, fear and all the negativity.
Yeah, and your work addresses more than just birth. So you have really embraced from the beginning of the hormonal cycle for women, menstruation, all the way through menopause and the aging of women through their hormonal cycle and just as human beings. And so how did that come to be?
Yeah. So as I continued to just grow on a very personal level, so much of this is about my own personal journey, and just expressing that. So I just started to explore more and more what being a powerful female looks like, and where we need to change the narrative in our culture. And I really think that pretty much any and every physiological process that happens to a woman, there's a disempowering narrative, so yeah, menstruation is just, well, they're all great examples, but menstruation, how many people are positive about menstruation? Men, women, otherwise, like, it's just this thing to deal with. And I started reading books, actually, about finding the power in your menstrual cycle. And I started keeping track of my own menstrual cycle and realizing how there's these superpowers that come along with it. That there are these certain, like this week, I'm really attuned to spirit. This week I have all of this energy and could do anything in the world, like I'm gonna clean my whole house. And this week I really just need to, let my kids watch the television and go shut myself in my room and just have quiet space. And that's okay. That's actually positive. That I'm not just, we're so taught to just like power through, power through. The culture is so linear. Men have this linear energy. We are not linear. We are cyclical. We are a labyrinth. We are a wave. And wow, when I finally realized that it was okay to not show up in the same way every day, that was so empowering and so just, why couldn't I have learned this as a 13-year-old when I started to bleed, that it's okay. The way we are is okay, and it's actually really great once you tap into it and really have an understanding of it. Sorry, I get really worked up about this.
No, I am so excited. This is such a beautiful conversation, and it's really lovely to hear your process, kind of the unfolding of this, because there's a lot of undoing of societal teaching that I believe has been happening for you in order to have those connections to be built, and then to say, all right, I'm not only going to read books on this. I'm not only going to talk to my 7-year-old about it, or my husband about it, or have conversations over dinner with my friends, but now I'm going to take it into this public forum, and I'm going to put it on canvases. We were like 30 by 30. And I'm going to say, this is what I believe. And I'm sharing these images with you to change the cultural paradigm. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery and a lot of trust and a lot of conviction, I believe, to be that vulnerable, to be the one coming forth and saying, this needs to change. And I am a change maker. So would you like to, would you like to, first of all, would you like to talk about that at all, about the vulnerability?
That's the exact word that I have mentioned to a few people, just specifically about this show. I've had art shows before, and it's never felt very vulnerable before. It's just like, these are my pretties. Yeah, aren't they pretty? Come and look at my pretty paintings that I made. And this is so personal, so vulnerable. Some of the paintings are of me, even, and it's just like, it's really good, and I'm so happy and excited, and it also it feels very vulnerable as well.
And you're not letting that stop you.
No, absolutely not.
That's right. That's another beautiful example of being empowered. So tell us about your show. What's it called? What's the name of it? And what's the vision behind it?
It is called Reclaiming. And the idea is that as women, we reclaim what is rightfully ours, that we reclaim our bodies and our power, our physiological processes for the positive things that they are, that we say no to the shame. My cat likes to join as well. I'm surprised she's not doing the same thing. That we, reject the shame that has been put upon us for the way our bodies work, for what our bodies do, that we, say no to the objectification. It's like women's bodies, it's either we're sexual or we're old. It seems so like either, it's just about whether or not, there's sexuality and that kind of beauty, or okay, if not, just set you aside,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just about reclaiming what we are from what the culture has told us that we are.
Yeah, I find it so interesting the way you phrase that, we're either sexual or we're old, because to be sexual, you have menstruation, the ability to birth children. The process of menopause is kind of like the end of that societal view of sexuality. But I have found now, as a woman in a little bit older than you are, who is in the process of menopause, that when the body stops the process of putting all of that energy, I mean, a female's menstruation cycle is monthly. You're going through and you're saying this week, this week, this week. It's nonstop from when you're like 12, 13, sometimes even 11, all the way through your early 50s. And so that's a lot of energy all put towards reproduction. And then when that stops, I feel, and I see it culturally, in women who are 50 and older, who have gone through menopause, that they have all this energy to birth new things in the world, to birth beautiful, genius, empowered, like life-saving, life-giving projects in the world. And so that point of menopause where society says, yep, you're old, we don't want to see you in movies, we're going to put you in some like silly thing where women are laughing about menopause and having hot flashes.
Yep.
Instead of saying, these are the women who have the wisdom that's been cultivated over all of those years of menstruation and is now like being birthed, like birthing their own selves instead of birthing another self.
Yes, you said that so well, and I completely agree with you. That's totally it. I've seen the same thing in women that I admire. Yeah, it's just like it seems like there's just this whole new energy, and I've seen women just blossom in these whole new ways, and it's very inspiring. And yes, society would tell us that that's just like the end. Like you hit menopause and what's there left, and like I don't want to be all patriarchal conspiracy theorist kind of a person, but it's like, what better way to be able to set women aside? What better way to keep the power than to disempower these women who are at the ultimate pinnacle of their power? These are the women who should be leading, and yeah, whether or not that's like this purposeful thing or just kind of how it's gone, I really think that it's too big a coincidence that women are set aside when they are really reaching the height of their wisdom and the energy of being able to create whole new worlds.
Yeah. And I think that it's both. Because you and I, because I know your husband and I've known you, you as a couple for a number of years now, you and I have super supportive husbands. And yet we probably both know other couples where their husbands are not as supportive of their wives and their wives' gifts and cycles and things like that. So I think that it's both, that there are men who are setting aside women, and then there are men who are honoring and cherishing and allowing women to shine and be empowered in their gifts.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
So what would you say to a man who's watching this, who's kind of saying, I don't really get it. I mean, I kind of understand, I can kind of follow the conversation, but I don't know whether I personally, as a male, have been empowering my wife or my daughter or my mother or my sister. So do you have anything that you would share with them about how they can start to kind of reframe either their actions or their words or even just their thought process around us?
I think that the easiest place to start would be a Google search on how exactly the menstrual cycle works. I think that even a lot of women do not really know exactly, what all the menstrual cycle entails, other than bleeding for, a week or a little less of it. And I think that understanding the basic physiology of that and the different hormone shifts and why they're there and what's happening would be really good. I have, helped Jeremy along as I have, learned more and tuned in more. And so it's just become, he has learned as I have delved in and, included him, like, most people are familiar with, pre-menstruation, but I'll just give that as an example of, like, I'm in my pre-menstruation week. So I need you to take the kids, extra this week because I need some space, or, I'm going to ovulate in a few days. I have a ton of energy. Why don't we do that project that we've been talking about? And just like, it can become a normal thing to talk about and to include in how you're living. If a man and woman are living together, then it'd probably be a good thing to understand and talk about.
Yeah, that brings a whole new meaning, I think, to the phrase "go with the flow." You know? Let's go with the hormonal flow, the emotional flow, the blood flow, what are those cycles? What are those dips? And what is that wave? What does it look like? And I think, having been a woman for quite a few years myself, that once you get to know that it really is, it's a cycle. It's, and it doesn't, sometimes there are variations depending on what's happening in the atmosphere or emotionally in your life. But for the most part, it comes and it goes and it does its thing. And when you tune into that instead of fighting it, everything becomes a lot easier.
It sure does.
Yeah. So I think, honestly, that women have not always been very supportive of women. And so we can sit here and have a patriarchal conversation and bash men, which we're not doing. But that wouldn't be fair, because I feel that as women, sometimes we are harder on ourselves and harder on other women than even men are sometimes. So what do you have to say about that?
I think that I don't really know where that comes from or why that is, but I really believe deeply that we need to be in community with other women in order to be truly happy and fulfilled. And I think most people aren't getting that. And I'm trying to, in my own little way of, I've started a little group for young parents. It's open to anybody, but of course it's mostly moms, learning to wear their babies in different baby carriers, and just like this monthly or eventually maybe bi-monthly group of just a community of people to come together and try out different baby carriers and hang out together. And, just little things like that. I think we just really need each other. And the way our culture is set up, the way society works now, we aren't getting that. And maybe that's making us be even more running each other down, and finding faults, because we are so disconnected from one another that we don't even know what it's like to be in sisterhood anymore. And it's really sad. I think that if we were able to connect more with other women and have, really strong circle of women who supported women, then it would be a lot easier to find our power, and embrace it.
I agree completely. And I think that part of that, and this is just my own opinion on this, but I think that part of that not supporting each other comes from the whole societal paradigm of sexuality and then like death, like the death of women at menopause. Because during the sexuality phase, everybody is in competition for male attention. And so I feel that I often have said in the past that when we talk about, okay, you're in college, you get dressed up, you go to the bars, And it's all then about, ooh, who's the cute guy or who's the cute girl, depending on what your gender and sexual orientation preference is. But when they say that women dress for men, I've always thought that women dress for women. They're not dressing for men. They're dressing for women. And that's that competitive part. And I think that it's not necessary. And that's on women.
Yeah.
I'm not going to play this game anymore.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And it's definitely, I would say, continues even into motherhood, of, who's momming the best, is that organic cotton, are you using cloth diapers? Is that Wendy's? I am such a better mother than that woman because she is feeding her child Wendy's. Like it's just this, oops. Oh, there we go. It's just this, this feels like never ending loop of, maybe it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just human nature. We always need to feel like we're better than somebody, and it's easier to compare ourselves to other women than to men.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is human nature, but I think that it's a part of human nature that really needs to find a better thing to do. Yes. Because when we shame each other for these decisions and we're constantly in this competition of, no, I'm better. I would never do that. I mean, in reality, if we really think about it from a spiritual perspective, one, we're all equal. And secondly, if you're out there shaming somebody else, that means that somewhere in your own life you're shaming yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's not helpful to be shaming yourself. And if in order to stop doing that, it's helpful to look out into your world and say, all right, well, who am I shaming?
Yeah.
Find out. Yeah. And to change that internal dialogue, which is so important. And which I think that if we stop doing that there would be more sisterhood. There'd be more communities of women who are truly supportive and not fictionally supportive. She's my best friend. Oh, you're feeding your kid Wendy's for dinner? How could you do that? Carbs. The kid's gonna live.
Yes. Yeah, I'm really not much of a social media person, but I once saw this meme, so I think that's the right word, that just really spoke to me. It has been hanging out in my brain ever since. It just really spoke to that whole mom competition. It was like, three moms came together. One mom had brought an organic lunch that was, organic and gluten-free and vegan in a woven basket that she made herself. And the other mom, she brought McDonald's that she had brought on the way. And the third mom didn't even know where her kid was. And so all the moms looked at each other and they went hand in hand to go look for that third mom's children, who happens to be under the table eating a stick of butter. And they all lived happily ever after. It was something like that. And it's just, yeah, wouldn't that be just wonderful if we could all just live and love and do our thing and let other women do what they want to do too.
Yeah, and know that everyone's really just doing the best that they can. Yeah. So you brought some of your beautiful work to show.
Yes.
And I would love for you to share with us and talk a little bit about each piece for us.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm going to pin your, okay, let's take care of
it. Can you see it?
I can see it, yes.
Okay. painting that started it all. I talked about everything okay?
Yes, I'm going to remove that pin from you. Okay. Go ahead.
I had been struggling with the idea of painting people again, because it had probably been 10 years since I had painted a human being. And I was scared that it would turn out horribly. And two, I just had no idea how that was going to fit in with my wildlife work and, how I made a living and the people who appreciated my art and liked to look at it online. And so I actually, what really kind of just got me going was I went to an art opening of Sarah Brocky's, and she had all these beautiful women. I was just like, I just have to do this. I just have to do this. And her work just really inspired me to go for it. And so I reached out to friends and acquaintances for just asking for their birth photos. And they were very kind and shared a lot of reference material with me. And so this painting was painted of a friend. Her midwife took this picture. I gave her a different face, but everything else is referenced off of her, and it was so fun, and it was so just exactly what I needed to be doing, that I knew it was the right thing once I finished it. It was really scary though to paint it.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's absolutely stunning.
When really I took it to the person who is the model, I suppose you would say, she wanted a large print of it, and so I took it to a local imaging business to have it professionally scanned, and the reaction of the gentleman at the desk was so wonderful. I used to be a very shy person, and not enjoying confrontation or making people uncomfortable or anything like that, but I'm really embracing that making people uncomfortable is not a bad thing.
Yeah, that's where all the interesting stuff happens.
Yes. And his discomfort and his just processing this image was pretty fun. It really was very satisfying, because that's what I want, to show these images. And okay, you're uncomfortable. Let's work through that. Why does this make you uncomfortable? Why does an image of a human being born onto this earthly plane cause you such discomfort?
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, and here's another birth painting that it was a commission for a friend of mine, that I did a couple years ago, but she has graciously loaned it back to me to be in the show. I love this painting so much. The look between them, I named this painting Knowing, because it was like the way he's looking at her, he knows her. It's so beautiful. This is a painting of the postpartum. It's one of two that I have in the show. And, people generally really like pregnant women. They like the belly, they like the pregnancy glow. But it's like, once the baby's born, you got to put that away. Let's get that body back. Let's bounce back now. And that's something that really irritates me. This body, this vessel that has grown human being, brought a human being earthside, is then required to go back to what it was before. Actually, let's honor it, and let's just appreciate its glory in stretch marks. And the other painting has a C-section scar. Let's just appreciate these new bodies instead of expecting them to go back to, the maiden. That's not, that's not the right order of things. There's a time for the body of the maiden, and let's, as a culture, find an appreciation for the body of the mother, because it's glorious in its own right, just in a different way. This is a series, all except one that I did not apparently have a picture of, that shows a baby coming out. I decided to do this series because people don't actually see what it looks like for a baby to come out. This is probably my most discomforting series or painting, and slightly graphic. I tried not to make it too graphic because I really don't want to disturb people. But I also really, really, truly believe that this is something that people should be able to look at and see and find a positive feeling for it. I have strong feelings about this series, especially as a birth doula. I see a lot of, at hospitals, it's really, there's a lot of fear in birth, especially with OBGYNs versus the hospital midwives. And so it's babies. This is how babies are born. They slowly come out, and then they facing straight to the back, and then they turn to the side all by themselves. And once their shoulders are facing the correct way, then they come out. And it's really marvelous how it works generally so well. But unfortunately, at hospitals, I just see a lot of intervention and a lot of medical professionals who don't actually know how birth works on just a very physiological level. And most doctors have not actually seen a birth that has not been messed with on some level. So they usually have their hands in there, turning the baby, helping the baby out. And it's something that I feel passionately about, that we should really, doctors are really great and really helpful and really necessary sometimes, and I really think that we need to have more trust in the process and in babies and the wisdom of mothers and mothers' bodies. Oops. I love this painting. This painting was so fun to do. I really wanted to paint women. I did not want this to be a painting about white women. And that was a little bit hard to navigate, especially living in Duluth. I will say that pretty much all my friends are white, because Duluth is a very, very white place. But that's not the whole story. So it was really important to me to be able to include different types of bodies and different skin colors. So this lovely, lovely mama who I met online allowed me to paint her. And I'm very thankful that she allowed me to paint her, because this painting is just, it's one of my favorites. I really love it. This painting was my first painting about menstruation. So she is bleeding. It was a kind of a struggle to figure out how exactly to depict menstruation without being, I didn't want to be super graphic. And how exactly to put that into a painting. So this is my first bleeding piece, and it was I pretty much, with my wildlife work and with my work up to this point, I never put anything decorative or any kind of patterns or anything in there. It's just the being. And so it was, even though it's just like these really simple little shapes and movements, that I was really trying to depict kind of life growing from the blood, that like she is she's giving her blood to the earth, and it's creating this new life and this new energy. And it was fun and a stretch for me just to paint these these little swirls. And it's really, I've really grown a lot, starting from there, doing these paintings, trying new things. Oh, sorry.
No,
Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say that is the first image, the menstruating one, the first one you showed. That's the first image, this one, that I saw, that because the Duluth Art Institute sends out, an announcement of the show. And so this is the postcard that they sent. And when I saw it, I went, oh my gosh. And then I kind of recognized your style of painting in there. And I turned it over, went, oh my gosh, that's Alexa. And it just blew me away. And so that was, I think, the start of wanting to talk to you about this on a deeper level, is this painting. And what's interesting to me is that you're telling us now that this is one of the very first ones that you even did. And so, yeah, it's beautifully done.
Thank you. I'm really glad that they decided to use this one, because I feel like it is, there are other ones that are easier to maybe process or look at, and this one is a little bit, if you understand what's going on, it's a little bit uncomfortable, revolutionary, blood. We're so afraid of blood in our culture, which really, really affects, I think, the cultural view of bleeding and menstruation, and just how negative we are about it. But what if we change the narrative in that women can bleed without sustaining injury? We can bleed and we still have this beautiful, amazing health and body and system. And wow, like that's really pretty cool. That's how I've tried to communicate it to my children, to my sons. That isn't that just really cool that mommy, bleeds out of her uterus and I'm fine. They get excited when mommy bleeds out of her uterus, because it means a day or two of mommy sitting on the couch and having quiet time. So less we homeschool, so less schoolwork, more fun for them, more nature shows. This is the second bleeding piece, and the first time I have ever, probably since art school, and I was forced to paint any sort of geometrical pattern, and it was very much a struggle to actually draw it and figure it out. But I really wanted to use the idea of a labyrinth in relation to the cyclical hormones of being female, and even like the cyclical life, the different seasons of a woman's life, and so I really wanted to try to put that in there, to give the representation of how we are not linear, and it is beautiful.
Yeah, I love how the labyrinth you can see through, because you have your beautiful, acrylic, dilute acrylic that you're using, how the labyrinth is there first, like behind the image of the woman. You have to really, it's very subtle. You have to really look for it, but yeah, it's gorgeous.
Thank you. Oops. So for menopause, and just even though aging is not a specific physiological function to women, and I think that ageism is a problem for men as well. I do think that it is more so for women, that as women get older, as we have already talked about, that we are more set aside than a man would be. So for these, I decided that I really wanted to do portraits of real women who, really are everything that I aspire to be, someday. So this is a painting of Carolyn. She is an elder of the Red Cliff tribe, and I did not personally know her, but I was able to connect with her from a mutual acquaintance, Ivy, and we got to know one another over the phone, and it was really an honor to paint her and just to hear her story. Just talking to her over the phone, she kind of told me the story of her life, and it was an incredibly humbling experience to hear, and to be told her experiences, and to witness her power in overcoming some very, very deep, difficult life circumstances, like grief, lots of grief, and just hearing her talk about the way she has um, embraced her life experiences and moved through them and found so much wisdom and grace, and just love, so much love, that I was just so inspired to get to paint her portrait. I really wanted to specifically paint an Indigenous elder because, white culture, white American culture, at least, like we've already said, we tend to discard our elders and not look to them as leaders or look to them as guides or holders of wisdom. We tend to just think they're outdated. And one of the things that I greatly admire about Indigenous cultures is the way they honor their elders. So I'm very thankful to get to have painted her. And the image was taken by our mutual friend Ivy. So I'm very thankful to her as well for allowing me to paint from her own photography.
Yeah, it's beautiful. What I love about this is, hearing you talk just even just a little bit about her life, is that there's so much joy in this painting. And to know that after so many years and collecting the wisdom of so many obstacles and overcoming all of those things, that there's so much joy. And I love the white that you have around, because that's the life force energy that comes from living all of those years and being able to share that with the world. It's really beautiful.
Yes, thank you. And this is a friend of mine. Her name is Stacy, and she's one of those women that we talked about, that I've just seen how she has, through menopause, she has just embraced the energy of change and possibility, and is just doing really amazing things. And I admire her so much. She's a very powerful person, and just I think she's just like the mother of mothers. The number of women in Duluth who have been touched by her in some way, like we talked about supporting women, and she is like the ultimate supporter of women, and like a creator of community. And I admire so much about her, and so I really wanted to do a portrait of her to capture her power and her energy, and just her beauty. Well, I think that's, oh no, okay, last one. This one was really fun to do, and felt like it was the last piece that I created, and it was just like, I'm just going for it. Typically I do an underdrawing. I do the background, and then I do a pencil drawing, and then I paint on top of that. And for this one, I did not do a pencil drawing. I just went for it, and I just started painting, and it was so fun and so hard, but just really freeing. I realized when I was kind of finishing things up for the show that I had just done portraits of older women, and while I wasn't going to ask one of my older women friends to pose for me naked, I didn't think that I knew anybody who would do that. It occurred to me that that I was kind of playing into the cultural narrative that only the maiden and the mother are worthy of being seen or have powerful bodies. So I was like, whoa, I need to do this painting. So it was very interesting trying to find reference material for this painting, because trying to figure out exactly what older skin looks like, what older arms look like. There's as far as just like getting images, it's difficult, and people are not really interested in having you photograph their wrinkly bellies, which I get. So that was an interesting challenge, but I'm really, really happy with the result of this super powerful elder woman who is completely comfortable in her skin and completely empowered in her physical body, and is really a spiritual being as well.
Is that the moon she's holding?
Yes.
Yes. And so I think you had said in one of your narratives we didn't talk about today yet, but that the moon actually informs of the female cycle. And how
Yes.
beautiful to include the moon in the older stages of life once the cycle has already been complete, but yet the life cycle is still ongoing within this woman and every woman past menopause.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, beautifully done. I can, as an artist myself, I can totally understand the freedom of saying, all right, pencil, I don't need you anymore. I am unplugging myself from your restrictions and the eraser and this perfection, and just trusting in my skills and my ability to bring forth this vision that's in my head with paint on canvas. It's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. I've always struggled with just perfectionism in painting, and I used to paint very photorealistically. That's the only way I knew how to do it. That's just, it has to be perfect. It has to look exactly like real life. And it's really been a growth for me to let go more and more every year. I'm able to paint more loosely, and just bring out with the brush strokes that bring out what I want with minimal brush strokes to allow for a lot more expression.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Let's see. Yep, that's it. Let's bring you back here.
Thank you so much, Alexa. That was they're breathtaking. Is that
Thank
the
you.
entire show, or are there more that are
No,
not? I would imagine it's not the entire show.
there are more.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so
Those are my favorite.
your opening is on Tuesday.
Yes.
What is the date? Remind me of the date.
25th.
The 25th, yes, at 5:30 at Duluth Art Institute. And I'm going to include links to the Duluth Art Institute's page and to your work so that those who are watching after the 25th or those who are not in Duluth will be able to see more of your work and read about your vision, as you really beautifully wrote it on your website. So do you have anything last words that you would like to share with people?
Find your power. Man, woman, non-binary, whatever you identify as, whatever your biological sex, whoever you are, you're powerful. You just have to find it, tune into it. And it's a process. I'm finding more every day. it's so easy to let the culture define who we are and what we're allowed to be proud of or find power in. And we don't need to. We don't need to listen to that.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure to talk to you, and I wish you the best of luck in your show on Tuesday. And I'm excited to see what else you create after this, because I feel like there is more. There's more inside of you, and that this vision of yours and this reclaiming of your own power is going to take you to even greater heights than where you are right now. And it'll be really fascinating for me to watch that happen.
Thank you. And thank you for allowing me to get all passionate about all the things that I like to talk about, but that there's only so many times I can get on a soapbox to my husband about it after the kids,
Well, we are opening you up to a brand new audience. All right. Thanks, Alexa.
Thank you.